It's time for spelling analysis. Let's practice what we've been learning. The first word is simple. Let's start with a simple problem. Simple. Go ahead and say simple. How many syllables? 2. We will say to spell sim-pull. What will we say to spell? Sim-pull. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is sim. S-I-M. The second syllable is pull. P-U. Silent final E. Go ahead and write sim-pull. Sound it out as you write it. And help me to write it. The first syllable is sim. S-I-M. The second syllable is pull. P-U. Silent final E. How do we mark it? We'll double underline the E. Why do we have a silent E in simple? Every syllable must have a vowel. Let's read it. S-I-M-P-U. Simple. The next word is type. Do you know how to type? Go ahead and say type. Let's sound it out. T-I. Use a y-I-I-E. P. Silent final E. Go ahead and write type. Sound it out as you write it. And help me to write it. T-I-P. Silent final E. Question, did you use the right kind of I? Check yours. Now, how will we mark it? What sound of y-I-I-E do we hear? You're right, it's saying it's long vowel sound. And why? The vowel said it's long sound because of the E. Let's read it. T-I-P. Type. The next word is mouse. There was a mouse in our house. Go ahead and say mouse. Let's sound it out. Ow. Use an ow, o, u, s. Silent final E. Go ahead and write mouse. Good, sounding it out. And help me to write it. Ow, s. Silent final E. How do we mark it? We'll underline the ow. And why do we have a silent E in mouse? You're right. We need it there to keep it from looking like it's plural by ending in an S. So to keep it from looking plural, we add an E. Let's read it. Ouse, mouse. The next word is practice. She plays the piano and she needs to practice every day. Go ahead and say practice. How many syllables? 2. We will say to spell practice. What will we say to spell? Practice. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is prac. P-R-A-C. Use a k, s. The second syllable is tis. T-I-S. Use a k, s. Silent final E. You're right. Go ahead and write practice. Sound it out loud as you write it. Excellent. Now help me to write it. The first syllable is prac. P-R-A-C. The second syllable is tis. T-I-S. Silent final E. How do we mark it? What sound of k do you hear? The second, and we'll double underline the E. Why do we have a silent E in practice? The C softens to S because of the E. Excellent. Let's read it. P-R-A-C-T-I-S. Practice. What would it say without the E? It would say practic, but with it, practice. The next word is solve. Can you solve the problem? Solve. Go ahead and say solve. Let's sound it out. S-A-L-V. Silent final E. You've got it. Sound it out. It's written just like it sounds. And help me to write it. S-A-L-V. Silent final E. Why do we have a silent E in solve? Excellent. English words do not end in V or U, therefore add an E. Let's read it. S-A-L-V. Solve. The next word is problem. Do you know how to solve the problem? Problem. How many syllables in problem? 2. We will say to spell prob-lem. What will we say to spell? Prob-lem. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is prob. P-R-A-B. The second syllable is lem. L-E-M. Go ahead and write problem. Sound it out as you write it. Excellent, and help me to write it. First syllable is prob. B. Second syllable is lem. L-E-M. Let's read it. B, L-E-M. Problem. The next word is come. I told the dog to come. Come. Go ahead and say come. We will say to spell calm. What will we say to spell? Calm. Let's sound it out. K. Use a k. Silent final E. Go ahead and write calm. Excellent. And help me to write it. K, silent final E. Why do we have a silent final E here? It's an odd job reason. We don't see it. It's unseen. And why did the O say O may say next to a W, T, H, M. There it is, N or V. This, as you can imagine, is a very old word. Let's sound it out. Come. The next word is much like it. It's some. Would you like some? Go ahead and say some. Do you hear a next to an M? What do you think you will say to spell? You're right. You'll say to spell psalm. Let's sound it out. Silent final E. Go ahead and write psalm. And help me to write it. Silent final E. And why do we have a silent E in some? You're right, it's an odd job reason. And here, that O is saying next to an M. It's again those scribes that chose to write the sound with an O when it was next to up and down lines in some of these very old words. Let's read it. Some. The next word is wash. Make sure to wash your hands. Wash. Go ahead and say wash. Let's sound it out. Use an a, sh. Go ahead and write wash. Excellent. And now help me to write it. Sh. And how do we mark it? What sound of a, do we hear? The broad sound. Why did it say it's broad sound? It said it's broad sound after a W, and that is very common. Let's underline the sh. Let's read it. Wash. The next word is clothes. Did you wash your clothes? Go ahead and say clothes. How many syllables in clothes? Just one. Let's sound it out. Z. That's an z. Yep. Go ahead and write clothes. Good. And help me to write it. Z. All right. How will we mark it? We'll underline the v. And what sound of do you hear? The second. And what sound of z do you hear in clothes? The second. Excellent. Let's read it. Clothes. Oh, we need a line over the O. Why did the O say its long sound? I and O may say I and O before two consonants, and there it is. The next word is receive. We will receive the package today. Receive. Go ahead and say receive. How many syllables? Two. Say to spell receive. What do you say to spell? Receive. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is re. E. The second syllable is sieve. This is C. Silent final E. Go ahead and write receive. Sound it out as you write it. And help me to write it. Sieves. Silent final E. How do we mark it? We'll put a line over the E. Why did the E say its long sound? A, E, O, U usually say their long sounds at the end of the syllable. And we'll underline the C. Why do we have a silent final E in receive? You're right. English words do not end in V or U. Therefore, add an E. Let's read it. receive. Did you see that? I was already trying to read it as two phonograms, and that's fine. You can think of this as E, or you can think of it as C, receive. Great work. The next word is tease. Please do not tease him. Tease. Go ahead and say tease. Let's sound it out. T-E, use an E-A, Z, use a S-Z. Silent final E. Go ahead and write tease. And help me to write it. T-E-Z, silent final E. How do we mark it? Well, underline the E. And what sound does S do here? The second. And we'll underline the silent final E twice to show that it's silent. Why do we have a silent E in tease? Well, without it, it looks like, look at this. We have the word tea, as in I'll drink some tea. And then we have tease, as in I have many types of, or many teas in the cupboard. So it's to distinguish two words that might sound the same, but are now spelled differently. So homophones. Let's sound it out. E-Z, tease. The next word is breakfast. What did you have for breakfast? Go ahead and say breakfast. How many syllables? Two. We will say to spell fast. What will we say to spell? Fast. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is break. B-R-E, use an E-F-A, k, talk. The second syllable is fast. F-A-S-T. Go ahead and write fast. Excellent. Good sounding it out. And help me to write it. The first syllable is break. B-R-E-K. The second syllable is fast. F-A-S-T. And how will we mark it? Well, underline the E. What sound of E-A do here? The second. All right, let's read it. B-R-E-K-F-A-S-T. Breakfast. Now, you noticed that this said ist. That's that schwa sound. Any vowel may say or I in an unstressed syllable. Now, what two words make up the word breakfast? Well, we have the word fast, and in this case, to fast means to go without food. If you are fasting, you are not eating. And this, all on its own, says break, E-A. It uses its third sound, A. And so breakfast is when you break a fast. When you go to sleep at night, you're not eating, so you're fasting. And when you get up in the morning and you eat breakfast, you break the fast. This is an example of how morphemes come together to make a new word. It's also an example of why they chose to use E-A. They needed a phonogram that would say E as in breakfast and A as in break. The next word is lunch. The meal after breakfast is lunch. Let's sound it out. L-A-N-C. Go ahead and write lunch. Good, and help me to write it. L-A-N-C. And how do we mark it? Well, underline the ch. Let's read it. L-A-N-C, lunch. The next word is dinner. What will we have for dinner? Dinner. Go ahead and say dinner. How many syllables? Two. We will say to spell din-ner. What will we say to spell? Din-ner. Let's sound it out. The first syllable is din. D-I-N. The second syllable is ner. N-er. Use the er of her. Go ahead and write din-ner, sounding it out as you write it. Excellent. And now help me to write it. The first syllable is din, D-I-N. The second syllable is ner, N-er. And how do we mark it? We'll underline the er. Let's read it. D-I-N-N-er, dinner. Great work today.
Combining the science of reading with the joy of learning. Learn more at essentials.logicoфenglish.com.